This is Financial Myth-Busting with Dawn Bennett.
I mean, the latest joke out there is that truth has become so valuable that the U.S. government has actually embarked on a conservation program. It's just ridiculous. I don't even know where this acceptance of lies by the government has come from. It's certainly not in the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution lays out exactly what the government is allowed to do. And the 10th Amendment makes it very clear that the government may not assume a right or power. If something isn't in the Constitution, then the government may not legally do it. Now, I've actually read that Constitution over and over again, but nowhere in the document is the government explicitly given the right and the power to lie to the people. It isn't there.
Dawn J. Bennett started her career as a financial advisor in the mid-80s, working her way up through the brokerage industry in Washington, D.C., the capital city of the United States, and earning a reputation for being bold, confident, and highly persuasive. In 1989, she was named as a Rookie of the Year in Registered Representative magazine. Then in 2006, she launched her own firm, Bennett Group Financial Services, bringing along staff and clients who trusted her. Bennett understood the power of image and visibility. She was media savvy, regularly securing TV and radio appearances and quotes in financial publications. In 2009, Barron's Magazine, a leading investing publication, ranked Bennett as the 5th best female financial advisor in the United States and 26th overall, with her reportedly managing around $1.1 billion in assets. Getting onto lists in Barron's Magazine became a powerful marketing tool, and more clients began signing with Bennett Group, believing they were working with one of the best in the country. By 2011, Barron's ranked Dawn Bennett as the number 2 financial advisor in Washington, D.C., reporting that she was now managing $2 billion in assets. At the same time, Bennett was expanding her reach through her weekly, nationally syndicated radio show, Financial Myth-Busting with Dawn Bennett. It was a call-in show that also occasionally featured high-profile guests from business and politics. Her show aired on Saturday mornings, and her audience was largely made up of retirees, many of whom would become her clients. From the outside, it looked like Dawn Bennett was the epitome of success. She was always dressed expensively head to toe, leased office space in an upscale area of Chevy Chase, Maryland, maintained 2 penthouse apartments, drove multiple luxury cars, and committed to a 20-year lease on a Dallas Cowboys home stadium suite, costing $500,000 a year. In 2010, Bennett launched a new business, one aligned with her other passion of sport, an online luxury sporting goods retailer called djbennett.com. It sold high-end items, tennis, golf, skiing gear, etc., and designer activewear from premium brands like Barbour, Arc'teryx, and Porsche. She targeted wealthy customers and opened up a private, appointment-only showroom next door to her brokerage office. All of DJ Bennett's marketing material also made it clear that this was a high-end, aspirational store. But in reality, the business was hemorrhaging money, and in just 2 years, it had lost over $1.4 million. Bennett was in need of a cash injection so desperately that she started an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for her business, seeking $500,000. Definitely an unusual move for an investing expert supposedly managing over $2 billion in assets. She claimed in the pitch, the company revenues are projected to be over $100 million in 6 years, with a gross profit margin potential of over 90%. It doesn't take an expert to know that that kind of profit margin is extremely rare. The page also claimed to be affiliated with a charity called They're Just Kids, but a quick Google search didn't turn up any results for the organization. The crowdfunding campaign only ever raised $6 from one backer. By the end of 2014, things were looking rough for Bennett. Her brokerage clients who had lost large amounts of money were abandoning her and reporting her to FINRA, a private regulator. She was also now on the SEC's radar for the claims she was making about her own success on her radio show. On top of that, she was being sued by the Dallas Cowboys for failing to pay for her luxury suite, with damages totaling over $7 million. So what was her solution? Shut down her failing store? Sell one of her cars or apartments? Stop bragging on her radio show about her non-existent $2 billion portfolio? Do her job better and figure out some more secure investments? Nah, that'd be too obvious. Instead, she started offering her loyal clients the exclusive opportunity to invest in djbennett.com, which she described as a startup that would become the Amazon of the sporting goods world. Between late 2014 and 2017, Bennett raised over $20 million from 46 investors. She did this by offering a guaranteed annual return of 15% in the form of promissory and convertible notes. She assured her investors that the company was thriving and that she had a whole bunch of rich customers in China. To back up the pitch, Bennett's CFO, Bradley Masho, falsified financial records and revenue projections to make it look like the company would be earning tens of millions of dollars yearly. Bennett also promised her investors that they could have their money back anytime. She preyed on the people who trusted her, many of them longtime clients, many of them elderly. In reality, the business was in total freefall, losing over $6 million in 2015 alone, and new investor funds were not being used for business operations. Instead, the money was diverted to cover Dawn Bennett's personal expenses and to pay back earlier investors, so it seemed like they were making that guaranteed 15% annual return. This false success would then lure in even more new investors, which means, ladies and gents, we have ourselves a classic Ponzi scheme. Among the victims of her scam was Joan Barney, a retired travel agent who invested $200,000. She had known Bennett for more than 25 years and believed every lie about the new online shop. Joan was the full-time carer for her husband, who suffered from Parkinson's disease and dementia, which Bennett was fully aware of. There was Michael Fox, a museum director in his 70s, and also a longtime client of Bennett's. He had told her that he didn't want to put his money into anything too risky, as he was caring for his sick, bedridden wife. He wrote in an email to her, "Dawn, what you are managing is our sole security blanket. It would be a killer if for any reason an investment in your fine company would lead to any more losses than what our portfolio had experienced in the recent past." But Bennett pushed him and convinced him to hand over $800,000, which included a $75,000 loan he borrowed against his life insurance policy. Jean Dalmas, an investor in her 60s, put all of her retirement savings of $150,000 into djbennett.com after Bennett warned her that the stock market wasn't safe and positioned her business as the better option. Another retiree, Diane Keefe, didn't know much about online businesses, but Bennett convinced her that her store was flourishing, and so she invested over $800,000 that she never saw again. But the thing about Ponzi schemes is they always collapse, and at the end of 2015, things unraveled fast. At this point, Dawn Bennett was only earning about $100,000 annually in commissions from her brokerage, which was still under scrutiny by the SEC. Charges were filed against her in September for inflating both her firm's assets under management and its investment performance. She'd claimed to be managing over $2 billion, when in reality it was never over $407 million. She had misrepresented herself and her firm to Barron's magazine and used the publicity to attract more clients. Bennett decided that the best plan of action was not to fight these allegations, but to simply ignore them. She didn't show up to the legal proceedings and claimed that she was the target of a political witch hunt because she had spoken out against the government on her radio show. As a result of her no-show, the SEC permanently banned her from the securities industry. Meanwhile, she borrowed money, obtaining a $750,000 line of credit by claiming she had over $4 million in a brokerage account. But in true Dawn Bennett style, her statements were falsified and her account actually contained just over $35. Yes, 35. The loan was meant for business operations, but instead, she used it to pay off her investors and cover her own lifestyle expenses. The walls were beginning to close in on Bennett. Clients wanted their money back and investigators had questions for her. She instructed her employees to lie to anyone asking for her and tell them she was sick or traveling while she was actually hiding out at a Starbucks down the street. But none of these cortisol spiking problems were enough for Bennett to cut back on her personal spending. Credit card records showed that she was still regularly dropping tens of thousands of dollars at high-end stores, spending $141,000 on gemstones and over $100,000 on cosmetic treatments. She had also spent a total of $800,000 placing orders on the website puja.net, which allowed users to pay for Hindu religious rituals known as puja. She initially asked for the priests in India to focus their prayers on prosperity and success, seemingly hoping they could turn around her business fortunes. But as her situation grew more dire, she began commissioning rituals to ward off her enemies. Bennett was becoming increasingly disconnected from reality, and this would not be her final attempt at channeling supernatural forces to solve her problems. By now, the FBI had gotten involved. They were tipped off by a bank employee at a local Maryland branch who became suspicious when an 80-year-old customer attempted to withdraw $32,000 to invest in djbennett.com. The bank employee did some due diligence on behalf of the elderly customer and discovered that Dawn Bennett was banned and under investigation by the SEC. By the end of 2016, djbennett.com had only ever made $550,000 in revenue and never turned a profit. In August 2017, FBI agents raided Dawn Bennett's office and 2 penthouse apartments. At the office, investigators found damning documents, including an excuse list of pre-written explanations for staff to give to clients and investigators looking for Bennett. The first penthouse turned out to be Bennett's primary residence and was filled with expensive furniture and luxury decor. The second apartment had essentially been converted into a giant wardrobe. It was packed wall to wall with racks of designer clothes, handbags, and shelves holding more than 700 pairs of shoes. Many items still had the price tag on. Investigators initially considered that all of that stuff could have been inventory for djbennett.com, but everything was in the same size, and it was clear that this was where a big chunk of investor funds had ended up. But the most insane discovery was in the kitchen. Inside the freezer were dozens of mason jars containing some kind of grey meat and sludge. Various initials had been written on the jar lids in permanent marker. There were 2 more chest freezers filled with similar jars. Investigators found printouts with information about the 3 SEC attorneys on Bennett's case, and the initials written on the jars matched their names. They also found printouts of instructions for something called a hoodoo shut-up spell. The ritual involved reciting a chant, "I cross and cover you, come under my command, I command you to hold your tongue," while slicing into a beef tongue, inserting a piece of paper with the target's name or photo, and then sewing it back up. All of those jars in the apartment were full of beef tongue and were evidence of Dawn Bennett's many attempts at casting the spell to silence the SEC attorneys investigating her. A few days later, Bennett was arrested at a holiday rental house in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where she had been hiding out. She was charged with 17 federal offenses, including conspiracy, securities fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, and making false statements on loan applications. Her trial began in October 2018. Despite Bennett's many years of making a false living off of yapping on the radio, she did not speak in her own defense at the trial. Her lawyers argued that djbennett.com was not a scam, but a legitimate startup that simply hadn't succeeded. They said that Bennett genuinely believed in the company, that she had invested millions of her own money into the venture. They pointed out that the company was real. There were real customers, employees and suppliers, and a showroom to prove that. They argued that the $800,000 she spent on Hindu priests was evidence of someone trying desperately, however unusually, to make her business succeed. But all the other evidence, the falsified financial statements, the blatant lies and use of new investor funds to pay off earlier ones, it was enough for the jury to find Bennett guilty on all counts. Dawn Bennett, age 56, was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison and ordered to pay over $14.5 million in restitution. Her appeal was denied in 2021. Her co-defendant and CFO, Bradley Masho, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit securities fraud and making false statements. He was sentenced to 30 months in prison and ordered to pay $5 million in restitution. Massive thank you to all of our paid supporters: K4S Silva, Cindy Chen, Some Nerd You Don't Know, Trevor Eddy, Chelsea Weinzel, AKL192, Julie Bear, Peach Thomas, Weekend Sandrat, and Marina Scarf. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.